September 1st, 2006, Newry, Maine. The Black Bear Bed and Breakfast is a small inn tucked into the New England woods. Inside the aging farmhouse is a 65-year-old innkeeper and her dogs trying to keep her dream alive during the off-season. A line cook who's renting a room while he works nearby, and a handyman from Arkansas just looking for a fresh start and a way to get back to his kids. By the time the long weekend is over, only one of them will be alive. The rest will have been executed one by one, including a visiting daughter, her best friend, and the family pets. When the killer is confronted and asked what happened, his answer was a simple, "I killed some people." This is the murder spree of Christian Nielsen, the quiet guest, and the violent weekend. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Podorf. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friend, I just didn't say 3 times, did I? Let's try it again. Hey, welcome. I got in a hurry because I'm excited about this greeting. Our friends in the French Antilles.
Okay.
I just wanted to say Antilles.
Antilles?
Yeah. Bel bonjour, bel bonjour, bel bonjour.
That sounds very romantic.
Welcome.
I'll meet you later.
All right, baby.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide. Then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who love true crime and are just like you can find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button below.
Yep.
If you want true crime with us all the dang time, please go join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook, type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a couple questions, and you are in. Go join. I post lots of photos and other information in there as well. It's a wonderful group of supportive true crime folks.
And you know, it's funny. I mean, you and I have been extremely busy in the past few weeks with projects and stuff. So we haven't had as much time to post on the In-Laws and Outlaws. But it's such an interactive group. They're all just having fun together without
I've
us.
been in there.
I know, but I'm just saying we've been extremely busy.
We're never too busy for the In-Laws and Outlaws.
That's true.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee because he drinks it every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that link in our show notes. You can also send us a text. The link to that is at the bottom of the show notes where it says, send Chris and Rob a text or a message.
Yep. And I have to give a shout out here. I'm wearing my Vanderbilt sweatshirt in honor of our future daughter-in-law who just graduated from Vanderbilt with her law degree.
Yes, she did. We're very proud of her.
Yes.
Well, this is one of the cases, hopefully she never has to defend or prosecute, okay?
Yeah.
This is one of the cases where there's just no rhyme or reason. All the murders, all murders are senseless, but there's usually like a motive, like the killer wants something.
Sure.
Revenge or sex or money. Not this time. Before we get started, let me thank some sources. Wikipedia, Murderpedia, The State of Maine versus Christian Nielsen, SMCC Beacon, Boston.com, The New York Times, NBC News, CBS News, The Dark Podcast, True Crime England, The Sun Journal, and Investigation Discoveries, Signs of a Psychopath, which he is, just to name a few. You can find all of those sources in the show notes.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Christian Charles Nielsen was born on May 2nd, 1975 in Rumford, Maine, to parents Charles and Patricia Nielsen. He has a younger sister named Patrine. I thought that was an interesting name. Christian's dad is a high school English teacher, at Durango High School in Dixfield, Maine. Love all those English teachers. By the way, just shout out to all teachers. You're not paid enough
Yeah.
and you change kids' lives.
Yep.
I had an English teacher who told me I needed to stick with it and be a writer. So thanks for that, because here I am after all these years later.
My teacher told me I should be a fire watcher.
That is not true. Christian's parents are going to divorce when he's about 4, but by the time 1982 rolls around, his parents are embroiled in an ugly custody battle. And here's why. Patricia had a boyfriend named Michael Lewitt, and Michael was 25 years old and had a significant criminal history, which included burglary, theft, and receiving stolen property.
That'll get you a rap sheet.
He'd even done time at the Maine State Prison in Windham. Now, there's nothing documented that says that Michael abused Christian or Patrine mentally or physically, or that his mother, Patricia, did. But after their parents split and Michael coming into their lives, there were signs that something was amiss, because both kids had emotional and behavioral changes. Because at the very least, it's very unstable around their parents, around their mom especially, and Michael.
Okay.
And the court documented, quote, uncontrolled urinating, excessive belligerence, and unusual nervousness, end quote, in the children.
That sounds like a problem.
It sounds like a big problem.
Yeah.
So when Christian is 6, his mother loses custody of him and his little sister. And by 1982, Christian and Patrine are living primarily with their father, Charles, and his second wife, Carol. And when a psychologist evaluates the family, they said that Charles and Carol's marriage appeared very healthy and stable. And this was a part of the reason why the judge gave custody to him and their mother lost custody, because Carol, the new stepmom, was fully taking on the parenting role with both of the children.
Okay.
But Charles and Carol are eventually also going to divorce when Christian is a teenager. By the way, his mother, Patricia, will marry this Michael Lewitt, but she's going to divorce him as well. Christian is eventually going to be diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a neurodevelopmental condition on the autism spectrum characterized by significant difficulties with social interaction and nonverbal communication, alongside restricted and intensely focused interests and repetitive behaviors in people who have no significant delay in language or overall intelligence. And that is straight from the DSMR or whatever it is that gives diagnoses.
Okay.
It's a different way for a person's brain to work. You know, it's wired differently, mainly how they read social cues, how they communicate, and how they use routines in their lives. So Christian's had a bit of a bumpy start, right? But despite the documented turmoil, many people who knew him, friends, neighbors, classmates, eventually co-workers, and even a former church youth group leader, said he seemed like, quote, a normal kid, end quote, and a normal young adult. He was soft-spoken, but otherwise unremarkable.
Okay.
After he graduated from Mount Blue High School in Farmington, Maine in 1995, it seems like he bounced around work-wise and school-wise. He does attend the University of Maine between 2001 and 2004, off and on, but he left without earning his degree in English, which is exactly what his dad got his degree in, and that's what he was studying. He's going to have some aimless years, and he's eventually going to return to various low-paying jobs in the food service industry. And it's during this time, when he's in his 20s, that Christian begins fantasizing a lot about killing, about being a serial killer.
I guess everybody's got to have a hobby.
Yeah, and this is not a hobby.
Wow, that's scary.
Christian was an avid reader and would frequent the Devaney, Doak, and Garrett booksellers in Farmington, Maine quite a lot. He would buy classical literature as well as comedy books. And although he acts strange from time to time, he would have big mood swings. And everybody he worked with or came in contact with, like the owner of the bookstore, they all believed, even though he was having these wild mood swings where at one point he would be happy and at another point he would be brooding or not even talking to anybody. They all thought it was just completely harmless.
Was he ever diagnosed being bipolar or anything like that?
No,
Yeah.
just as a psychopath.
Okay, all right.
While Christian is working as a line cook, he's drinking a lot, maybe because he doesn't like his life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in 2006, he gets an OUI in Maine, which is operating under the influence, like a DUI, and he loses his driver's license around July of 2006. Now, around this same time, Christian is dropping out of college in 2004. Julie and Selby Bullard, a mother and daughter, are moving to Maine from their native town of San Francisco. They're moving to this small town of Newry, Maine, which is near the Sunday River Ski Resort in western Maine. So basically a resort town.
Okay.
And when it's ski season, it's packed. And when it's not, it's a ghost town. And it just reminded me of, I was in Martha's Vineyard one year during the off season, and it was super quiet. And a lot of the restaurants had closed up shop even for the year. It was a little eerie.
This town doesn't seem very crowded.
It's the off season.
If you've ever been there when it's busy and then you go when there's nobody there, it's kind of like a ghost town.
I went to Ohio University down in Athens, Ohio, and, during the school year, the town was, obviously a lot of students. And the minute school was done for the year, there was like 4 people left in town. It was crazy.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Julie Atterbury Newby Bullard was born on July 22nd, 1941 in Amarillo, Texas, to Luther and Meredith Bullard. Apparently, even though she lived most of her life in San Francisco, she had a Southern Texas accent.
Hey, y'all!
Where'd that come from?
She was born in Amarillo, Texas.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Sorry.
Julie, whose dad was a pilot for Pan Am, brought the whole family to Hong Kong, and they traveled the world with her parents and her 2 younger sisters, Sol and Laura. And as an adult, Julie settled in San Francisco, living there for 25 years. Can you imagine your dad's a pilot for Pan Am? So you just live in Hong Kong for a while. You live in California for a while. Then you live in Paris for a while.
I wonder how that Texas Southern accent
with her
went over
Texas accent.
in
Well,
Hong Kong.
It makes me think that probably her mother had an accent. And so when she's learning to speak and they're traveling and she's around her mom,
Sure.
That's the American accent she had.
Well, you pick up more of a Southern accent when you're around your relatives.
The ones in North Carolina, yeah.
North Carolina.
And then my daughter, who lives in New York City, all of her friends say, we can tell when you've been talking to your mother on the phone because you like show up with while you're talking to her on the phone, you get more and more of a Southern accent. What can I say?
Yep.
But Julie had a passion for, and I loved this, teacups and a fine cake crumb. Me too, Julie.
Okay.
She loved antiquing and her many beloved pets. In San Francisco, she owned a bed and breakfast called the Church Street B&B, and she was known as a very charming hostess and was also known for her breakfast pajama parties at her B&Bs.
Really?
All right, stop. Pajama time.
Really?
Julie and I would have gotten along like a house on fire. I would have loved that.
Yep.
Julie had 4 daughters and 9 grandchildren who called her Dammy.
No.
I thought that was very sweet.
Yeah.
Among her 4 daughters was Selby. Selby Eckhab Bullard was born on June 21st, 1976. Selby wouldn't like that if I gave her 10 more years. 76 in Lakeport, California, to Julie and Dennis Bullard. Julie has 2 children, Leela and Elliot. And sometime after Selby marries, and has children, her husband dies in a fiery car crash.
Ooh.
And by 2004, Selby, who sells fashionable eyewear to opticians, which I thought was an interesting career,
Yeah.
she decides she just wants to start over somewhere new, which you can fully understand.
Sure.
And when her mother decided that she did too, Julie, Selby, Leela, and Elliot leave California, and they buy the Black Bear B&B
Okay.
in Newry, Maine.
All right.
And the Black Bear, which dates back to the 1830s, this place is haunted for sure,
Yeah.
was originally a New England farmhouse that had been converted into a small 6-room inn with classic old farmhouse charm.
Nice.
And when they all arrive in Maine, Selby begins selling real estate in 2006. And Selby was known as an adoring mother. She was someone who would always bring the fun and humor to every situation. She had a great love for life, which is something really extraordinary because she's been through a lot.
Right.
And still to be that person who brings the sunshine everywhere she goes is pretty extraordinary. So the 4 of them get to Maine, mother, daughter, 2 grandchildren. They get to Maine and they move into the Black Bear Bed and Breakfast. And Selby is selling real estate for Apple Tree Realty. Now, I need to say, Selby and her 2 children are not living at the B&B, just her mother. So they get their own house, okay?
All right.
But while Selby is selling real estate for Apple Tree Realty, she meets Cynthia Beatson, who was a broker right alongside Selby between 2004 and 2005 when they both joined. Cynthia Ellen Cabral Beatson, she goes by Cindy, was born on May 29th, 1963 in Boston to Bernard and Dorothy Cabral. She has a brother, Charles, and she went to school in Sudbury, Massachusetts, later at the Fashion School of Design in Boston and Babson College in Wellesley. She moved to Maine in 1992, where she met her husband, Douglas, and they were both working at the Sunday River Ski Resort. So I had friends who in the summer in college would all go down to Hilton Head, and everybody took like lifeguarding jobs or waitress jobs, and they just spent the summer in Hilton Head.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the same thing. These kids are going to work in the Sunday River Ski Resort during the ski season, and that's where she meets her sweet husband.
Nice.
They get married in 1994 and had a daughter, Carly. Now, Cindy worked as a manager and a waitress at lots of Sunday River restaurants and the Bethel Inn Resort, but she went back to school and got her real estate license. But remember, I said she went to fashion school, right?
Right.
Well, she was an incredible seamstress, and she could make anything. Cindy was very outgoing. She was active. She loved skiing, hiking, golfing, swimming, and she was the kind of person who would always step in when somebody needed help with something. Now, also living in the area at the same time was 50-year-old James William Whitehurst. He goes by Jimmy. Jimmy was born on August 22nd, 1956 in San Diego, California, to Jack and Juanita Whitehurst. He's the youngest of 3 children, but his dad was in the Marines, and the family never stayed in one place for very long. So he's not an Army brat, he's a Marine brat.
There you go.
When Jimmy was 3, he was stricken with polio and spent 3 years in an iron lung in a Washington, D.C. hospital.
What exactly is, I've never known.
I knew you were going to ask that question, and I don't know that I know the exact answer. I've seen all the pictures of it before, where it's just the person's head sticking out of the top.
All right, well, here's a challenge for all our in-laws and outlaws. If you guys know what
Somebody
this is.
email us and tell us exactly what an iron lung is. I'm assuming it helps you breathe.
Yeah, or
But
just,
if he has polio, why does he need help breathing? I don't know.
yeah, or just post it on the in-laws and outlaws page.
Listen, if we tried to make up what it was, somebody would send me a nasty email telling me how much of an idiot I am
You are an idiot.
because I don't know what an iron lung is.
Well, let us know.
Jimmy would live his life with a bad limp because of his polio, but he loved to dance and he loved to bike and play. He was a bit of a daredevil and he liked to play wheelchair basketball. So he could walk with a limp. He had really smaller legs than normal. But he made his way to Arkansas, Batesville, Arkansas to be exact. And there he had a common law wife. Her name was Taylor. And they have 4 children. Juanita, Jacqueline, Jim, and Jamie, all J's. Jimmy has all J children.
Yeah.
Jimmy spent much of his adult life in California and Florida and was in the salvage business, but he moved to Maine around 2001 and he was trying to get his personal life back on track so he could reclaim a role in his children's lives. I don't know why he didn't have a role in their lives, but he didn't.
Okay.
And according to many, he was a big man with a big heart. And what he starts doing is handyman work in Maine, and this is how Jimmy meets Julie Bullard, the owner of the Black Bear B&B.
All right.
Now, I've told you all about all of these people. Don't send me an email telling me all I'm doing is like ticking off the facts of somebody's life. We do these podcasts for the victims. So
Right.
you're going to hear about their lives. If you don't want to hear about their lives and you only want to hear about the killer, then go listen to somebody else's podcast.
There you
Can you
go.
tell I got an email?
Yes.
Do your own podcast if you don't want to talk about the victims, okay?
Yeah.
In the summer of 2006, Julie needed help around this bed and breakfast, getting things up to par. And in return, she gives Jimmy free room and board. And these two become friends. And he is like a live-in helper. He would do repairs and upkeep. And Julie actually puts this bed and breakfast up for sale in the spring of 2006, hoping to sell it and move to Brooklyn to live with another one of her daughters. She just wasn't making ends meet
Right.
at the B&B, especially during the off season. So because she can't make ends meet, she begins taking in boarders when the B&B wasn't booked around the holidays. She's just trying to make the mortgage and make
Sure.
everything run.
Right.
And one boarder she took in was an awkward 31-year-old guy who'd lost his driver's license and needed to live near his new job as a line cook at the Suds Pub located in the Sudbury Inn in Bethel, Maine, and it's within walking distance from the Black Bear. So after his OUI or his DUI, he's also fired from the Family Fare restaurant in Farmington, Maine, and he gets hired in Sudbury, not at Sudbury at the Suds Pub. Sorry. But he can't drive his car, so he needs a place where he can walk to and from work.
Sure. Okay.
And while he's living in the Black Bear, Christian gets to know Julie and her daughter Selby and Jimmy. But also living at the Black Bear are Julie's dogs, Rose, Buster, and Lolly.
Oh.
And she also had a cat named Killer.
Nice.
And if you're a cat owner, you're probably like, yeah, Julie, I get it. You have a cat named Killer. I get it.
That's funny to me.
I think cats can be diabolical.
I am your boss.
What's the saying? Dogs have owners and cats have staff.
Exactly.
But I have to think that we are Scotty's staff at
Yeah.
times.
Oh,
So
he runs this house.
he does. We got like a 6-pound ball of fur running our lives, y'all. It's something else.
We thought kids were bad.
Yeah, I thought kids were bad. Scotty, empty nesters. Now we have Scotty running the show.
Oh my gosh.
By the time Labor Day 2006 rolls around, Christian had been living at the Black Bear for about 2 months after his OUI. And Christian had told people that he was going to get on the straight and narrow, no more boozing. He was going to shelve his haphazard college career and he was going to enlist in the United States military. But along with these dreams, Christian in reality wasn't getting his life back on track. According to the New York Times, he was behind on his rent to Julie, way behind. So he's not paying to live in the Black Bear.
Right.
But he's behind so much so that Selby, Julie's daughter, the real estate agent, has looked into what the process is to evict somebody. What is this eviction process? What do we need to do to get Christian out?
Yep.
Julie really wanted him out. I think Jimmy wanted him out, and so did Julie's daughter. I think all of them wanted Christian out.
And from what I understand, the eviction process is very difficult.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never evicted anyone, nor have I been evicted.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's harder when you have like squatters' rights. But
Yeah.
if you're living in a home with other people, well, then you're not the only one who has a key and you can't keep everybody out. I would think they could just take all this stuff, put it out by the side of the road and change the locks.
Yeah.
You're done,
Right.
Christian.
Right.
Now, one of the biggest mysteries of this case that I said in the beginning is the why of it all. Okay? So just be thinking why the whole time as
Okay.
I'm telling you this.
All right.
Friday, September 1st, 2006, the Black Bear B&B has nary a guest to check in. Christian invited Jimmy Whitehurst to go for a drive and to go fishing in Upton, Maine, about 30 minutes northwest of Newry. And Christian tells him, my family's got a cabin there. And Jimmy is an avid outdoorsman. So, of course, he says, well, heck yeah, let's go fishing.
Yeah.
They stopped at a Subway to pick up lunch, and then they headed up Brown Company Road, which was a long dirt road in McGalloway. And this dirt road leads to Pine Point, which looks out over Lake Unbagog. Unbagog. I think that's right.
Okay.
Unbagog.
All right.
Lake Unbagog. Somebody's going to email me about that too, which is indigenous Abnaki, which someone's going to email me about, for shallow water. It means shallow water.
Okay.
Now, the lake straddles the Maine and New Hampshire borders, and this is where they're going to go fish. And eventually, Christian, who is driving his car while he's got a suspended license, by the way, stopped in a clearing and tells Jimmy this is a good place to stop and have lunch, which is kind of odd because he told Jimmy they were going to his family's cabin, right?
Right.
So why wouldn't you wait to go to the cabin?
Yeah.
And do you have to eat lunch before you fish? I thought you could eat a sandwich and fish at the same
Or
time.
just eat the fish that you caught.
Very funny. Honey.
Thank you.
If you like sushi.
Here you go.
These two ate their sandwiches, and then Christian bummed a cigarette from Jimmy. And when he was finished smoking, Christian tells Jimmy, I've got to go to the bathroom. I got to use the bathroom. And it's at this time, while he's off on his own for just a hot second, that Christian pulls out a .38 caliber handgun that he'd hidden in his waistband. He bought this gun some time ago. Now, mind you, Christian is not a bulky guy. He's thin, and how he hid this gun is beyond me. But he pulls it out of his waistband, and he shoots Jimmy once in the back of the head, and then twice in the body, killing him instantly. Then Christian leaves Jimmy's body in the remote location where they were having lunch, and he drives to work, to his kitchen shift at the Sudbury Inn Suds Pub. And he goes to work as if nothing happened. He kills him and he's like, okay, looks at his watch. I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta bounce. I gotta go. I gotta be at work.
Wow.
The next day, Saturday, September 2nd, Christian returns to the remote site in Upton where he murdered Jimmy. His first thought was to dig a grave, but instead he poured gasoline over Jimmy and set his whole body ablaze.
Ugh.
He just wants to destroy the body. And then I think he tries to bury it just a little bit, but not really.
Yeah, because bones aren't going to burn.
When Christian gets back to the Black Bear, it's pretty obvious that Jimmy is not there anymore, and he believes that Julie is going to start to ask him questions about Jimmy's whereabouts. Didn't you go fishing with him yesterday? What happened to Jimmy?
Yeah.
So early the next morning, Sunday, September 3rd, 2006, Christian peeked through the window of Julie's bedroom, and he can see that she is still asleep. He goes back inside the B&B, he busts down Julie's door, and immediately begins firing his .38. He shot her 3 times in the head, chest, and back. He will later claim that the gun blast knocked Julie back into the wall, which Christian claimed was, quote, awesome.
Oh,
end
my
quote.
God. It's sick.
He dragged Julie's body into the nearby woods directly behind the property. Then he used an axe and a hacksaw to cut her body in half.
Ugh.
Now, there aren't sources that break down the precise anatomical cuts, but they all say she was literally cut in half. Then Christian wrapped the dismembered remains of Julie in a tarp and left them hidden in the wooded area before once again going off to his work shift in the kitchen at the Sudbury Inn. Again, as if nothing has happened.
Wow.
But before he leaves for his kitchen shift, Christian shoots at least one of Julie's dogs that day.
Oh.
In the end, he's going to kill all 3. Scotty, hope you didn't have your ears open for that one.
Yeah. Now I'm upset.
I know everybody's mad. It's the John Wick phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Can shoot people, don't kill the dog.
There you go.
On Monday, September 4th, 2006, Christian drives his car to his father, Charlie's home, and borrows a chainsaw. He plans to cut up and dispose of the remains of Julie. Then late morning, he hears the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. It's Julie's daughter, Selby Bullard, and her best friend, Cindy Beatson. Selby had recently broken her leg, and Cindy was nice enough to give her a ride when she needed it. And Selby was worried about her mother because she had tried to get in touch with her, and her mom wasn't answering the phone. And something I didn't tell you was that Julie had chronic asthma. So Selby was worried that her mom had had an asthma attack and hadn't been able to get to her inhaler.
Right.
Selby goes into the Black Bear, and she can see that the door to her mother's room has been broken down. And she turns to Christian and says, quote, "Christian, did you kill my mother?" End quote. And Christian doesn't know if Selby is joking or not. Selby's saying this from her mother's room, while Christian and Cindy are like outside the room in a different room.
Right.
So Christian looks at Cindy and said, quote, "Hey, let's go see her." Christian opened the door to Julie's room where Selby was and held the door for Cindy, and Cindy said to him, "After you." And Christian said, quote, "No, after you." And as soon as he does that, Selby's facing Cindy, and Cindy's back is to Christian. Christian pulls out his gun and fires his .38 and shoots Cindy in the back of the head.
Oh, gee.
And then he immediately shoots Selby also in the head. Then he drags their bodies outside and uses the chainsaw he borrowed from his dad and the hacksaw he already had to dismember both Selby and Cindy.
Good Lord.
Then he also removed their fingers post-mortem. He cuts off their fingers and he takes their rings, putting them in a duffel bag. Then he kills the remaining 2 dogs because he's afraid they're going to disturb his piles of body parts in the woods behind the Black Bear B&B. Then on Monday evening, September 4th, 2006, Christian calls his dad, Charles, and his stepmom, Lee Graham, to tell them that he is running the Black Bear B&B while Julie is away, and he invited them over for a Labor Day visit. But when Charles pulled onto the property, he can see that there is fresh blood in the grass, and he followed this trail of blood, and he finds body parts of both Selby and Cindy and 3 dogs.
Wow.
Then he confronts Christian, who calmly stated, quote, "I killed some people," end quote.
Wow.
Lee, Charles's wife, calls 911. Around 5:30 p.m., Maine State Trooper Dan Hansen receives the radio call from dispatch that there was a report of an unattended death at the Black Bear Bed and Breakfast. When Trooper Hansen arrives, Lee Graham, Christian's stepmom, tells him that her husband Charles had found bodies in the woods behind the inn and that her stepson Christian had told Charles that he had, quote, "killed some people." Lee points to Christian and Charles, who are sitting on a bench outside the house. So Trooper Hansen immediately calls for backup and walks over to Charles and Christian, and he asks Christian directly, "What is going on?" And Christian looked at Trooper Hansen's name tag that said Dan Hansen. And he says to him, quote, "Well, I killed some people, Dan," end quote.
Jeez.
Can you imagine being parents and you like pull up on this?
Oh my gosh.
And Christian, he's so calm.
Yeah.
He's very unaffected by all of it.
Yeah.
So Trooper Hansen asks him, "When did this happen?" And Christian answers that it had been, quote, "a while," end quote. Christian says the word "a while" before State Trooper Hansen reads Christian Nielsen his Miranda rights. After he does read him his Miranda rights, Christian indicates that, yes, he understands these rights. And then Trooper Hansen asked Christian if he wanted to tell what had happened. And Christian said yes, but he, quote, only wanted to say it once, end quote. So Trooper Hansen tells him, look, the detectives are on their way and you can explain everything to them. But at this point, the trooper isn't taking any chances. The guy's admitted to murdering some people.
Yeah.
So while they wait for the detectives to arrive or for backup to get there, he handcuffs Christian and he puts him in the back of his cruiser. And after he does this, Trooper Hansen turns on his in-car video recorder to record Christian in the back seat. Then Charles Nielsen walks over to the cruiser and says to his son, shouldn't you wait for counsel? You think maybe you should wait to speak, get an attorney first?
Yeah.
And Christian replies, quote, yeah, not a bad idea, end quote.
Wow.
To which Trooper Hansen says to him, that's up to him whether he spoke with the detectives or not. And Christian said that he would talk to the detectives. So he's telling his dad, yeah, it's probably a good idea. And Trooper Hansen is like, well, it's up to you when the detectives get here if you want to say anything or not. And he's like, yeah, I'll talk to the detectives. Okay.
And this was after he read him his Miranda rights.
Yes,
okay.
And put him in the back of the cruiser.
All right.
Now, with Christian secured in the back of the car, Hansen asks Charles to describe where he found the victims. And as Trooper Hansen began searching the property, he followed a blood trail and finds 2 dismembered bodies, that of Selby Bullard and Cindy Beatson, and 2 of the dogs. He went back to the cruiser and said something to Christian, indicating he didn't know how many victims he was dealing with. So basically, he's saying, look, and he even says this, quote, I know you've invoked your rights and you want to speak to counsel, but I need to ask, is there any chance there's anyone here alive? I don't want to leave someone out there bleeding, end quote. So basically, he's like, did you kill everybody or do I need to be searching for someone who needs an ambulance?
Right.
But Christian Nielsen responded that he was sure everybody's dead. And while they waited for detectives to arrive, Charles told Trooper Hansen that he'd learned from Christian that there were 4 victims in total. 3 there at the Black Bear and 1 in Upton. And Trooper Hansen did finally learn from Christian and Charles where the 3rd body was on the Black Bear property. Trooper Hansen followed the directions and found the 3rd body, Julie Bullard, under a tarp about 50 yards from the first 2 bodies.
Wow.
Now, backup arrives at the Black Bear, and along with the backup officers, Norm Lewis of the Maine Game Wardens Service arrives shortly after 6 p.m. And this is when Trooper Hansen asks Norm if he knows the Brown Company Road in Upton. Are you familiar with this place that he's talking about? Because there just might be another victim up there. And Charles suggested that they ask Christian for specific directions to the 4th victim. But Trooper Hansen stated that because Christian had expressed his desire to only tell his story once, there would be no more questioning of Christian until the detectives arrived. And it was at this time that Trooper Hansen went to look for the 3rd victim at the inn. So the other detectives arrive, and then he's like, watch him.
Yeah.
And he goes off to look for Julie.
Okay.
And while Trooper Hansen was gone, Charles approached Christian and initiated a conversation with him, indicating that the police would be going to Upton. Look, son, they're going to go look for your 4th body. And Christian stated that this would be good because that was where his mother lived. At which point, Charles clarified that the police would be going to Upton to look for the 4th victim. So it's almost like they're going to go to Upton. Oh, yeah, well, that's where Mom lives. That's where my mom lives. That's good. They should go there. That's where Mom lives. Which has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he shot Jimmy, right?
Sounds like he's just totally disconnected.
He's very disconnected, right?
Yeah.
So the police are going to go to Upton to look for the 4th victim. Christian stated that the police would not find the body because he had burned it. And then Christian gave detailed directions to Game Warden Lewis regarding where he had burned the 4th victim without Lewis's prompting. So Officer Lewis didn't say, well, where is it exactly?
Yeah.
Christian gave this information freely.
Okay.
The only question Lewis asked Christian was for clarification at one point in his directions. Like, did you say a right or a left here? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
That night, Warden Lewis led other officers to the location where Christian told him he'd burned the fourth victim, and they found the fire pit Christian had described, and a forensic anthropologist will later confirm that the pit contained the remains of Jimmy. Now, at this point, Detective Jennifer King from the Maine Criminal Investigations Division has arrived at the Black Bear Bed and Breakfast around 7:30 p.m. Trooper Hansen caught Detective King up with the details and that Christian had been read his Miranda rights and he had made mention of wanting counsel, but he only wanted to tell his story once. And Detective King approached Christian and Hansen's police cruiser and asked him, would you like to come to the fire station here in Newry? And we'll interview you there at the fire station. And Christian says, okay. So he's led to a room upstairs in the fire station there. And Detective King removes his handcuffs at this point. Now, this room is set up like a classroom. And with a second detective present, Detective King and Christian sat at separate tables opposite one another as she starts to interview him. And first, Detective King asked Christian if he was hungry, and he said that he was. So Detective King sent Trooper Hansen to get him a sandwich. You know, that's pretty normal. They get somebody in to interrogate them,
Right.
and they want to be their friend. So it's like, can we get you anything? Do you want something to drink? Or
Right.
you want coffee? You want a soft drink? Are you hungry?
Yep.
I mean, they'll go out and get cheeseburgers for somebody. I mean, they'll go get them exactly what they want, especially if they're going to start confessing, right?
Right.
So after he finishes eating his sandwich, after Christian eats his sandwich, he's once again read his Miranda rights, to which he replied that he understood his rights and wanted to speak with Detective King. So he proceeds to confess to the murder of all four victims, giving a detailed account of each and every murder. But here's what's going to go down. After Christian Nielsen is indicted, he filed a motion to suppress all the statements he made to police on the evening of September 4th, as well as all the physical evidence obtained as a result of those statements.
And why?
Because they said he hadn't been Mirandized in time, because he said he was read his Miranda rights. He said that he understood, but before he's read his Miranda rights, Trooper Hansen asks him one question. And because he asks him one question, the defense is like, everything has to be thrown out. He answered a question before you read his Miranda rights.
Wow.
But the court said only one statement made by Christian should be suppressed.
There you go.
His statement that it had been a while since the killings happened. Remember, he wanted to know, how long ago did this happen, right?
Right.
Yeah. Because he'd killed some people, and that was before the Miranda rights. And the court denied the other motions.
Good.
And while he's waiting to be tried, Christian is held at the Oxford County Jail in South Paris. And during this pre-trial period, he attacked another inmate. And it was bad enough that officials had decided he couldn't stay there, so they transferred him to the Cumberland County Jail, where he then goes on a hunger strike and starts to exercise all the time. So in the first jail, he beats somebody up. So they move him. And in the second jail, he just stops eating.
Wow.
And while on his hunger strike at the Cumberland County Jail in December of 2006, Christian used a disposable razor to carve a large letter X into his own head.
Ugh.
And after this, he's placed on suicide watch. And when he went from 158 pounds to 103 pounds,
Whoa.
because he stopped eating, the jail medical staff wanted the judge to grant them permission to give Christian a feeding tube and to move him to the Riverview Psychiatric Center in Augusta so they can assess him and give him some treatment, right?
Right.
Well, the judge says, okay, get him out of there. But before they could insert the feeding tube, guess what?
I had no idea.
Christian starts eating on his own. So he's no longer in jail. He's in the hospital. Later, Christian entered a conditional guilty plea to all 4 counts of murder and was thereafter sentenced to 4 concurrent terms of life imprisonment on October 18, 2007. Life sentences in Maine carry no chance of parole. And at Christian's sentence hearing, Brooke Bullard, stepdaughter to Julie and a sister to Selby, read a statement written by Selby Bullard's 10-year-old son, Elliot, who is now a complete orphan. His father was killed in a car crash and his mother was murdered.
Wow.
In the statement, which Elliot titled, How My Life Changed and I Was Forever Wounded, he said he couldn't understand the violence that took his mother and grandmother's lives. Quote, they have walked the stairway to heaven, end quote, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah.
In an article about the passing of Cindy Beatson, her husband Douglas talked about how theirs was a love that was at first sight. They were in love at first sight, and that he would do his best to be strong for his and Cindy's daughter, Carly. Now, obviously, Christian Nielsen's mental health is going to be the focus, right?
Right.
He initially pleads not guilty by reason of insanity, but 2 different forensic psychologists testified that Christian was not legally insane, but that he did suffer from schizoid personality disorder, which made it hard for him to express emotion or remorse. But why? Why do all of this?
Yeah.
And when he's asked on ID's investigation discoveries, signs of a psychopath, that's a show.
Yeah.
They ask him, what happened? He says, quote, we're talking about dead people. Is that what you want me to talk about? End quote. He's very detached. He's very indifferent. Wow. As far as Jimmy was concerned, why did he kill him? Quote, I just objected to his presence. End quote. I just didn't like him. So I killed him.
Wow.
When talking about Julie, he said, quote, I woke up that morning and I knew I wanted to kill her, but dude, she sleeps until noon. I didn't have that long to wait. You know what I'm saying? End quote. And he's laughing through this.
Oh my God.
He's laughing through this.
Wow.
And when he's asked, what do you want us to tell Julie's kids? Again, he laughs and says, quote, I don't care. Tell them what you want to tell them.
Man.
End quote. He's asked, do you think it's a bad thing, what you did? And he says, quote, it doesn't make any difference. I'm alive. They're dead. End quote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
He also tells the interviewer on Investigation Discovery, quote, I just did it. I could see it coming from the age of 13 to 26. It's all I thought about, end quote.
What drives a person to think like that?
And if you see his photographs, which I will post in the In-Laws and Outlaws, but every photo of him, whenever the news media is there, he's always seeking the camera. He wants to look into the camera. He's always got like this smirk on his face, like he's smarter than everybody else, or he doesn't care, or he's in his own weird, sick, twisted, psychopathic world. Christian Nielsen is sitting in the Maine State Prison where he will be for the rest of his life.
Good.
But he ruined all of these lives and all of the people around these people for no reason whatsoever, just because he started killing and just kept going.
Wow.
But that is the twisted story of Christian Nielsen. And that's all I have to say about that.
This is my take on the whole thing. This is what I thought about in the very last section. Is what's scary is if you're out on the street or out in public or whatever, there are people like this running around.
Yeah.
And you have no idea who is who.
It's true. It's why you should always very much be aware of your surroundings. I don't care if you're in a big city, a small town. It's important to be aware of your surroundings.
Yep.
And who you speak with or have to be around. I mean, if it feels, we say this all the time, if it feels like it's not right, that's your intuition. It's not right. If something feels hinky, it is. And
Trust
better
your
to
gut.
get out. Yeah, just trust your gut. Better to get out and be wrong than stay and not want to hurt anybody's feelings or make things awkward and be right.
Yep.
Be safe, people.
Yes, please be safe. Well, I'm glad this guy's gone.
Well, he's not gone. He's just sitting in jail. He's rotting in jail.
He's gone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's move on with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, number one, and I pulled this from a site called boardpants.com.
Board pants.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this guy posted, this is him speaking. In college, I worked as a loss prevention guy for one of the big boxes, sit in a little room and watch cameras to catch shoplifters. We were having a problem with customers' wallets being stolen out of men's fitting rooms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the victim would go in, try on a new pair of pants, come out and show his wife. And when he went back into the fitting room, his wallet was gone.
Oh, wow.
So one afternoon, I get a call from the sales staff about a fight in the men's fitting room. I run down there to find a 6'2" guy with a 5'2" guy in a headlock. The 6'2" guy caught the 5'2" guy coming out of the room with his wallet.
Yeah.
Turns out the 6'2" guy's wallet was his Secret Service badge and his credentials.
Oops.
That's exactly what he said. Oops.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Number two.
Number two.
What a deal.
Oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you know what it's called? Loss prevention. You know what they call that when things go missing from the store?
No.
It's called shrinkage.
A little Seinfeld episode.
It's called shrinkage. I learned that a long time ago. And the first time I was in a boardroom and they were like, yeah, well, the shrinkage. I was like, wait, what?
That's
The
fun.
what? This is when I was in advertising and public relations and did some stuff for a convenience store, like a whole group of convenience stores. And they were like, well, the shrinkage report. I'm like, wow, okay.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
All right. Number two. What a deal.
What did you know? I love a deal.
Oh, yeah. At a car audio store, a guy shows up wanting them to install an amplifier in his car right now. All the installers are busy and tell him he ain't going to get it to happen today. But tomorrow we can. He gets all upset and tells them his guy will install it himself. And all he needs is the wires. They show him the amp kits and he picks one out and pays with a credit card and shows his ID, which is good. So the next thing is this fool grabbing a box with some entry-level 12-inch woofers and running out the door and throwing the box into his ride and peeling out of the parking lot. The store was pretty crowded and more than a few customers saw what
They witness it.
Yeah, what just went down and asked should they chase the guy down. Well, this idiot just paid with a credit card, and after checking that his name and ID match what they had and all the information they needed to have him arrested, but instead they just wrote up a ticket and manually punched in the credit card for
they
three
just charged
times.
him for it.
No, they charged 3 times the amount, something like $585.99 instead of this $169.96. The charge got approved and was never contested either.
Oh, wow. So he didn't call Visa and say, this is not mine. I didn't
No.
do that.
I
Well,
hope
he
he
probably knew better.
I hope he enjoys his inexpensive entry-level speakers.
Well, that's probably better than sitting in jail.
Yeah. All right, number 3, and finally.
And finally,
You're busted, but at least you smell terrific. A clever plan by an elderly man was foiled at a department store. He had a blazer with countless hidden pockets, and he was filling them with bottles of oil of Olay moisturizer.
What?
One of the store clerks and the loss prevention guy was called to help corner him. As he was leaving the door, he saw that he was being observed and followed, and he started to run. They ran after him, and he looked back at them. That's when he messed up. He tripped over his own feet and fell like a sack of potatoes.
Uh-oh.
Most of the moisturizer's bottles exploded, and he was all lubed up neck to knee. The upside to all of this, he smelled fantastic.
Well, oil of Olay is to keep you looking young.
There you go. He'll look young in prison.
He's going to look really young in prison. He probably, if he's elderly, probably broke a hip on his way down, too.
God.
So just buy your own oil of Olay.
Yeah, well, that should
Dude.
bless your hearts.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchedhomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime. We're going to do some of those suggested cases starting next week again. We've been doing some of them.
Good.
That's my amazing husband out there.
That's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.